Some of the best looking films of the last few years weren't shot on film, at least not in the traditional sense. They were captured digitally on modern digital cinema cameras, with all the convenience and control that comes with that. But when you watch them, they don't feel fully digital either. The Batman has this dirty, smeared, almost decaying texture to it, and Dune feels ancient and massive, like the image has been weathered by sand and sunlight. And Dune Part 2 somehow takes a giant digital blockbuster and makes it feel physical. Project Hail Mary, from what we know about its process, is following the same path. These are modern digital films made inside modern digital workflows, but the final image feels like it's passed through something else, something older, something less perfect. And that process is called film out.
Film made it look a little bit dated, whereas the digital test that we did had more of the feel that he was kind of after, but it was still a little bit sharp and a little bit digital.
For a long time, the film versus digital conversation was treated like a war.
It does nothing for me. It does nothing for me. I mean, I actually think I'm getting gypped when I go to a movie and I realize it's either been shot on digital or being projected in digital.
Cameras, digital projection, they're all tools. You know, it depends on the project. You choose a different camera like you used to choose a different film stock, and it's going to be digital projection. That's going to be the norm. It's just that's the way the world's going. So you make it the best you can, you know, and it's certainly got a lot of advantages that film never had.
One side would say film was more beautiful, more alive, and more cinematic, and the other side would say digital was the future. And to be honest, digital won that argument for very practical reasons. It wasn't because filmmakers suddenly stopped loving the look of film, it was because digital made the job easier in ways that were hard to ignore. You could see what you were shooting right away. You weren't waiting on a lab to process the footage before you knew if the scene worked. Directors and cinematographers could look at takes on set, and producers could get footage faster. Studios had more control, camera packages could be smaller, shoots could move quicker. You could roll longer without feeling every foot of film turning into money.
The IMAX camera has to stop and be reloaded every 2.5 minutes or so.
The image could move through post without fighting the workflow. So digital didn't take over because film became bad. It took over because film became inconvenient.
You know, it's just a different approach. I like this camera I'm using. It's fast, it's very small, it's very light, it's very quick. I can see the image that I'm photographing, I can play it back, I can see the shot we've got in a full resolution.
They can change the entire way a movie's made. But the trade-off is that digital also changed the feeling of the image, and that's where this conversation gets interesting. Digital can look incredible. Nobody serious is arguing that digital can't be beautiful. Some of the best looking images ever made have been captured digitally, but digital has a different kind of perfection to it. The image can feel clean in a way that film never does. It can feel immediate, precise, and untouched. Sometimes that's exactly what you want, but sometimes, especially in a movie that needs atmosphere, mystery, or decay, that cleanness can work against you, because film has a way of making the image feel like it has a surface. It's not just grain. People always reduce the film look to grain, but it's only part of it. Film changes the whole relationship between light, color, contrast, and texture. It has small variations in the image that you can't completely control. It has a softness that doesn't feel like blur. It has density in the shadows, and it has highlights that behave differently. And that highlight behavior is one of the big things. With digital, when highlights go too far, they can feel like they hit a ceiling. The image can clip in a way that feels sudden, clean, and electronic. Good cinematographers know how to protect against that, and modern digital cameras are obviously much better than they used to be. But the response is still different. The film has a different roll-off. Bright areas tend to fall off more gradually. The light blooms, it spreads, it carries texture onto the overexposure a little differently. The transition from detail to pure brightness doesn't feel as mechanical. It feels less like the image ran out of information and more like the light overwhelmed the film. That's the subtle difference. It changes how the image feels. So the interesting thing about film out is that it's not really filmmakers going backward. It's not them rejecting digital, it's almost the opposite. They're taking all the things digital's good at, the speed, the control, the lighter footprint, the visual effects workflow, and then before the movie's finished, they send the image through film. The digital footage is recorded onto actual celluloid, processed, scanned back into the computer, and then finished digitally. So the final movie is still part of a modern digital workflow. But the image has been physically altered by film. And that's why it doesn't feel the same as just adding grain in post. A grain overlay sits on top of the image. A LUT changes the color. A plugin can imitate the look, and some of those tools are really good now. But a film mount is different because the image has actually gone through the thing it's trying to resemble. The grain isn't just floating over the footage, the highlights, the shadows, the contrast, and the color response. All of it gets affected by the film itself. The image picks up little imperfections. It loses a certain digital sharpness. It gains kind of a physical resistance. Digital gives filmmakers control and film pushes back a little. And sometimes that pushback is exactly what the image needs. The Batman is probably the clearest example because that movie would have been very easy to ruin visually. Not ruin as in make it ugly, I mean ruin by making it too clean. A Batman movie can look expensive and still look wrong. Gotham can't feel like a perfectly rendered digital environment. It can't feel like a polished studio backlot either. The whole emotional idea of that world is rot, corruption, and rain. So if the image is too crisp, too clear, too controlled, something gets lost. What Greg Fraser and Matt Reeves did with the Batman was make the image feel infected by Gotham. The blacks feel heavy, the lights smear, the frame has this damp, grimy weight to it, and you can almost feel the air in the movie. And the film out process is a big part of that. It's not just an aesthetic choice sitting on top of the story. It feels like the visual language of the movie. Bruce Wayne is living in a city that is sick, and the image feels sick too. It feels like it's been sitting in the dark too long. And I think that's what makes it work. Dune's interesting because it uses the same idea for a completely different emotional effect. Dune isn't dirty in the way the Batman is. It's not grimy or wet or urban, it's clean in composition, often super restrained, almost spiritual, but it doesn't feel sterile, and that's the hard thing about a movie like Dune. On paper, it has every reason to look like a digital blockbuster. Huge worlds and massive visual effects. But Dune doesn't feel like that. It feels ancient. The images have this weight to them like they belong to a world that existed long before the characters walked into the frame. The sands feel tactile and the faces feel carved out of light, and the shadows feel less like empty darkness and more like atmosphere. That's where this hybrid process makes sense. Digital gives Dune the scale and control it needs. Film gives it the age. It keeps the movie from feeling too slick. And I think that's why Dune and the Batman are such useful examples. They're not just using film out to create the same look, they're using the same process to solve different problems. Dune Part 2 pushes that even further because the scale gets bigger, but the image still holds onto that physical quality. The desert is harsher and the Fremen world becomes more intimate. The Harkonnen world becomes more extreme, and somehow, even with all of that spectacle, the movie doesn't feel weightless. They can show you anything now. Entire planets and digital armies and impossible camera moves. But sometimes when everything is possible, nothing feels grounded. The image becomes impressive, but it doesn't feel heavy. A film out can't fix a bad movie. It can't make bad lighting good or give empty images meaning. But when the foundation is already strong, it can help the image feel like it has mass. It gives the frame a body. Project Hail Mary is where this trend starts to feel even more interesting, because it suggests it's not just for gritty movies or throwbacks. It's a modern sci-fi film and the kind of production that usually depends on a clean digital capture. That's the example where digital makes the most sense. But it's also probably the best example of where digital can become the most dangerous visually. Space movies can become too clean very quickly. Clean interiors and stars and helmets. Everything becomes smooth and weightless, and after a while it starts to feel less like cinema and more like expensive design. So the fact that a movie like Project Hail Mary is using film out says a lot about where this is headed. It's not about pretending the movie was shot in the 1970s, it's about giving a modern digital image some friction before the audience sees it. That's why this conversation feels bigger than just cinematographers arguing about grain.
I'd use an iPhone, I wouldn't. I'm fed up with this conversation. I think it's what's in the frame. And
because we're living in the cleanest visual era ever. Cameras are cleaner, lenses are sharper, phones overprocess everything, streaming platforms compress everything, and visual effects can make almost anything. And all the while, AI images are getting smoother and more polished every month. The default image of the modern world is becoming glossy. And after a while, glossy starts to feel empty. That's the danger. Not that the image looks bad, that they start feeling like nothing's happened to them. Film out's interesting because it puts a little damage back into the image. Not damage that ruins it. Damage that gives it character. The same way an old photograph feels different from a perfect screenshot. The same way a record has a feeling that's not just about sound quality. The imperfections become part of the experience. And maybe that's what movies are reaching for again. Not nostalgia exactly, but something different. That's the real appeal of this process. It lets filmmakers keep the speed and control of digital, but still bring back some of the mystery that digital can accidentally remove. So maybe film versus digital was never the most interesting question. Maybe the better question is what each one does well. Digital gives you control, while film gives you texture. Digital gives you the cleanest possible image, and film makes that image feel like it's lived a little. And in a time where everything is starting to look a little too perfect, that might be exactly why this process is coming back. Not because movies need to go backward, but because sometimes the future looks better when it carries a little bit of the past with it. If you liked this video, please subscribe, it helps out a lot, and I have a bunch more videos like this on the way.